one of the questions I would have, when you were finding out information, I find it, oddly enough, when I try to look for information, I have a hard time finding things that support my argument in a basic Google search. Even if I explicitly type of thing I want to say, it always seems like I'm directed into the opposite argument, even though that literature exists, and I'm very intentional in how I look for things. Did you come into any of that? Do you find that there's some sort of I see that Google is partnered with the C40 cities to promote a plant-based agenda.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to find information, one of the largest search engines in the world has already made that narrative shift. Any issue with that?
There can be, well, not least because it's so complex. That sometimes, the Google search anyway, even if nobody's filtering it, it's not going to turn up exactly what you want first go. So I used a variety of different methods. And one of the things I did was talk to experts in the field, either whether it be nutrition or soil health or environmental science. And I can actually see that one of those experts is on here, and he's a good buddy. And he's helped me a lot with information. And those people would give me a steer as to good sources, bad sources. And then once you get onto that track, it's then much easier to find, decent and comprehensive sources. But it does require some digging, and there will be, you run into some dead ends, and you just have to keep plugging away, which is why it took, 3 years to get it onto the page.
Did you have any kind of personal relationship with diet? Like there's a lot of people that were once vegan, vegetarian, and then that didn't work for them. They've become, for lack of a better term, perhaps jaded by the diet. Or what was your dietary habits leading up to this?
I'm a lifelong omnivore with a predilection for vegetables. So I would have been the person, and in fact, I was definitely this person. I would go to a steakhouse with my family when I was growing up, and I'd be the one that ordered the baked potato and the salad because I like the salad dressing, and I grew up like that, and I went through all that low fat stuff, and I loved vegetables. And then later and this was just previous really to me becoming interested in writing this book, a couple of years previous to that, I started to read a lot more about nutrition, and that started me looking at eating more meat and including that for the benefits that it was going to provide to me. And I realized that especially as I get older, as we all get older, we need that protein, we need those quality nutrients. And so I really shifted my diet to be much more of a protein-based omnivore, as it were.
Yeah, and you in the UK, are you in London or where are you located currently?
I'm just outside London, yeah.
Okay, so your mayor, Sadiq Khan, is the chairman of the C40 cities and has pledged to sort of push you into the green revolution one way or the other. And part of that includes, of course, going to a more or less plant-based diet. And is there any concern of yours for that? What would be the concerns of yours, knowing what you know, with making that shift, particularly on the dietary front?
Yeah, my primary concern is for children and young people and young women in particular. I am really concerned. And again, this sort of, when I talk about why I wrote the book, that would be the group of people that I wrote it for and their parents, as it were. I have seen, and we've all probably seen, just an amazing shift with young people wanting to go plant-based, drinking the plant milks, but also just cutting meat out. And young people recount stories to me all the time about how they're ashamed to order proper milk, or proper dairy milk in coffee shops, or they're ashamed to order meat when they're out for dinner with a group of half a dozen people of their age. So this is becoming almost an epidemic of wokeism and virtue signaling. But these people have been unfortunately led astray, and they've been taught that they've been persuaded that actually it's okay and that it's equally nutritious, where we know the opposite is true. We know that there are severe nutritional deficiencies in a plants-only diet. And we really need to start getting more accurate information out into schools and really just anywhere that there are young people making these decisions.
Yeah, and I think the counter argument to that, when you say the health, well, I know a vegan who's in good shape and he's doing fine, and they can always point to these various athletes. Invariably, they seem like they're 20 years old, and I often say, well, you've got people eating McDonald's every day that are professional athletes. how do you counter that? I mean, because people, if I say a vegan diet is lacking in nutrition and it's inferior to a diet that includes a decent amount of animal food, which I think it clearly is, they'll use as examples. So what is the sort of I mean, I know you wrote a whole book on this and you said to go read the book, and I have, but I mean, for the you've got a 3-minute conversation with somebody in the elevator. What are you telling them about nutrition? I mean, hey, why do you think, what is a major selling point or detraction from choosing a plant dominant or plant only diet?
Well, I think you could just list off the key nutrients that are missing in a plants only diet, and they will include vitamin D3, vitamin A, pre-converted vitamin A, DHA, EPA, zinc, iodine. You could list those off, but then and then you can talk about protein and how there really are differences in plant proteins and animal proteins in terms of their completeness, their amino acid content, that is, and their bioavailability. But even when you recount that, people will always say, just like you pointed out, oh, but my friend does very well on it, or I do very well on it, and I'm fine. And I think that it's important to recognize that some people do okay on these diets, because we are not all the same. We all have incredibly different biologies and genetic makeup. And I've read some very interesting stuff about why certain people might be doing very well. And it may have something to do with, for instance, their ability to convert vitamin A, which in some people is much stronger than in other people. 50% of the population cannot do it. But if you're one of those that can do it, then you're not going to miss the vitamin A from animal foods quite so much. Similarly, we have different gut biomes that allow us to metabolize K2 in different ways. So, and some people are more carbohydrate tolerant than others as well. And we know that plant proteins are more carbohydrate rich than animal proteins. So all of these factors are going to mean that some people, if they're very lucky and they're very careful and assiduous, can probably do okay and thrive for at least a certain amount of time on a vegan diet. But that is a totally different kettle of fish from recommending that diet to everyone, a universal adoption of a diet, which is clearly factually known to be lacking in so many nutrients.